Hear, feel, think, listen to episode 0 of A Grand Line Reborn, a new podcast miniseries by Third Impact Anime. I'm Tobias, your host for today, and I'm joined with my compatriot, my fellow sailor, my fellow scion of the Seventh Dawn, Bill.
Hello, I am your tank. I am your first mate, maybe, or your captain. Who knows? This is a weird ship we're on in this grand journey on the Grand Line, and in the realm of the Reborn.
I think at the end of the day, you're going to be the navigator, because much like Luffy, I might control this ship, but I certainly don't know where I'm going.
Oh no! You've seen me struggle with the map. That's good. It's going to be an interesting journey.
You know, you're right. You should just be the cook. You can be the cook, Bill.
Ooh, nice.
So for those listening at home, who may have no idea what we're going on about here, this is the start of a new podcast miniseries that Bill and I put together. If you are active participants on our Discord, you might have already seen this go down or even seen it continue the past few weeks. But what has happened, I think, is really the thing that both Bill and I have kind of wanted to happen for quite some time, in that we are subjecting each other to some of our favorite franchises. A week or two back, in our manga section, Bill was trying to pressure me once again to read One Piece. And I said, you know what, Bill? Fine. I'll read One Piece if you play the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. And Bill, tired of my shit, said, you know what? Let's do this. Let's quit talking about it. Let's do it. So we quickly drafted up a guideline for ourselves, as we both have sworn this new oath to journey to the Grand Line. I mean, read One Piece and also play FF14.
So the parameters of our agreement were Tobias would have to read the first two sagas of One Piece, which are East Blue and Alabasta. I didn't want to say everything because that would be intimidating. He is also not doing the anime because reading the manga is faster and much easier to do.
That's correct.
He also, but because I am primarily an anime watcher, I did say he has to watch the One Piece compilation specials that they have done concurrently. So there is one for East Blue, and then there is the Alabasta movie that came out a few years ago. So he will have to watch those when he gets to the end of each point in the manga.
Mm-hmm. And that makes total sense. I would like to have the free time to watch the anime as someone that primarily watches anime for his, weeb activities. But it's just daunting. We're looking at 30-minute episodes with, I know, as long as One Piece is. I think it would be better for everyone if I would just read the manga. But I certainly am excited to experience, the voice work, the animation, to see how that has improved over the past, 2 decades now that One Piece has been airing?
Yeah, the anime has been going since 1999.
Okay.
And still airing weekly, and has not stopped. Will probably never stop, no matter what Oda says. I don't care about your percentages. Just the ending will happen when it'll happen. But I thought for Tobias' sake, the manga would be an easier gateway than the anime.
And so on my end, in exchange for reading Ichiro Oda's magnum opus, Bill is going to be playing through the free trial of FF14. So what we're going to do is, on my end, I will do 2 sagas for every quote-unquote game or expansion in the 14 series. So by the time Bill finishes all of the 2.x material in Realm Reborn, I will have read both the first saga, East Blue, and the second one you said is the Alabasta saga.
Yep.
And from there, we will move into Heavensward, which I will be reading the next two sagas as well, alongside Bill playing that expansion. And, when Bill finishes the free trial, we will kind of determine then if we want to continue, since money would be involved at that point. So we will see what happens. Lord knows how long it's going to take for us to get to that point on both of our ends. So as for now, let's just kind of focus on what we've got. Let's read or play the sections that we've committed ourselves to, and then check in at that point to see where we want to continue. But so in any case, if you want to follow along with that on a more regular basis, we have a channel in the aforementioned Discord group that we talked about earlier. We will have an invite in the show notes, I'm sure, but we also have on the main Third Impact Anime website, that's thirdimpactanime.com, there should be a permalink to the Discord as well. So feel free to join that, hang out in all of our channels, but look for the one called A Grand Line Reborn if you want to sign up there and help Bill run some duties, or just talk about One Piece in general as well, because I'll post screenshots of what I've been reading and little discussion points along the way.
Oh, and we should say about that in that chat in the Discord, if the listeners decide to check it out, there are spoilers. We are reacting to each of our experiences in real time. So just be aware that, let's say you are new to One Piece and are wanting, you're beginning East Blue, Tobias might be ahead of you, and he might spoil a manga panel, or I might spoil something from Final Fantasy XIV, because it's our initial reactions to things that we usually respond to in the Grand Line Reborn chat. So be warned.
Yes. Very, very good point, Bill. There are no spoiler warnings in that up until the point where we are at in our respective series. So if you're new and you'd like to join us along this journey, feel free. Just be aware you might want to catch up to where we're currently at before you really dig deep. I don't think there's a whole lot of spoilers being just thrown out, but again, they are there. We're not going to spoiler tag stuff that either myself or Bill are at. So as Bill said, just be very careful should you decide to start poking around. Right, well, let's kind of close out this episode's series here. Let's just talk a little bit more about our respective familiarity with these franchises, because there's a reason that we are doing both One Piece and Final Fantasy XIV as part of this challenge. There's not just two random things that we've decided. Of course, if you've listened to Third Impact Anime for any period of time, you know that Bill loves One Piece. That's one of Bill's many loves. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your history with One Piece, how you discovered the series and have come to love it as you do today.
Sure. So, unlike a lot of people, I was a weird outlier, and I didn't catch it when it was on TV, either on the 4Kids time slot or when it was later on, I think, Toonami. I got into One Piece during my time at college, where my roommate and my usual anime co-pilot, who I watched stuff with Michael, he was looking for a series for us to watch, and I suggested, hey, I keep hearing about One Piece. Let's do that. And my only requisite is we don't do any filler. And he was like, okay, that's something I have watched for a while, but I never finished. And with a co-pilot, we could get through it. And because we were both in college, you have a lot of free time to kill. So we were able to get through the animated series at a good pace. I think it took us about 2 years to catch up, but that was like breaks in between and other things going on.
Right.
To now, we are completely up to date, and now dealing with the weekly grind or just waiting for episodes to build up and then do a big batch of them.
Right.
So the reason why I love One Piece is for a multitude of reasons. One, it's a very fun shonen series, and that if you like elaborate fights, you're going to get that in One Piece because everyone has unique powers thanks to the devil fruits. I also love the themes that Oda covers and just the complexity of the stories at times for what is all essentially a children's story. Because in this story, you're dealing with a multitude of heavy themes from later on racism to dealing with traumatic trauma to dealing with death, which when I first started watching this series, I was not expecting that to happen. I was expecting kind of, when I thought of shonen, I thought of kind of Power Rangers, Dragon Ball, like, oh, there's going to be fighting, there's going to be a lot of yelling, and they're going to just beat the bad guy and save the day. And that's, to a degree, some of One Piece, but I think there's a much bigger depth to the story of One Piece as you get further into each of the characters' backstories and their reasonings behind why they do things. And that's why I love One Piece, is just that kind of depth of storytelling, the very quirky characters, and just how vast the world is as you progress through it. I should also say I have not read the manga, not out of choice, but out of I don't want to get ahead of the anime and potentially spoil things with my usual anime co-pilot. But I have seen a lot of Oda's artwork. I own the 2 art books that Viz has put out, and I love his art. So I'm excited for Tobias to tell me about his perspective from the manga, because manga, there's different stylizations of how they handle fights, and just kind of difference in details, because an anime is not a one-to-one translation of a manga. There's always going to be a little bit of added stuff, whether that be voice acting, music, or more kind of smaller character moments. So I'm interested to hear Tobias's perspective more from the manga point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be a bit of a journey for sure. But with One Piece, like, I kind of came into this. It started, well, I shouldn't say started airing, but I guess it was kind of becoming a thing over here right when I got out of high school and was also in college, where at the time I was making my transition from, anime nerd, from watching stuff on Toonami to finding stuff online and watching anime online and discussing things with other anime fans through like web forums and whatnot. So at the time, Naruto was a brand new thing, and Naruto was a few seasons in when I jumped onto that. So that was my first shonen series as an adult. I won't say it's my first like big fandom, because I'd seen a lot of other stuff at that point, like really big into Evangelion as a high schooler, as you do. But Naruto was sort of the first time I revisited a shonen type series as an adult, more or less. So I was really obsessed with Naruto, and then One Piece was a thing, and people were trying to push to watch One Piece. And I had all the common complaints you hear. I didn't like the character designs. They were too goofy. It was a little too crude and cartoonish for my taste at the point. Because remember, I was this sophisticated anime watcher that was watching Naruto. I like the more action-oriented stuff that seemed a little more serious. The intense, the drama they had with the characters and the way they linked the older characters and the newer characters in one big history. And I was really into that. And when I looked at One Piece, that was very cartoony. I wasn't really into it. And I watched a few episodes. Like I gave it a try. I'll say that. But the first few episodes where we introduced to Luffy and then Kobe, and they were just really cartoonish in a way, and everything was moving really slowly in a way that just didn't really jive with me at the time. Now, of course, if you've been involved with the fandom for a while, you know that history has proven me wrong One Piece is still ongoing. It has gathered a huge fan base. It is still growing. If you've been online in any sort of capacity, you of course have seen somebody talk about One Piece and try to convince people to watch One Piece. So, of course, my earlier misgivings about its style and whatnot are, again, that was my thinking back then. I want to be clear. I'm not I'm not still under that impression. I don't want to anger people before we start off this podcast, but that was sort of the reason that I put it off for so long, as you can expect. So, yeah, just kind of hearing bits and pieces over the years and know a little bit about these characters because I mean, let's face it, these characters are part of the anime canon as a whole. They have cemented themselves as part of what anime culture is, and it can't really ignore that.
Yeah, I think I can understand where your younger self was coming from because one, the sheer number of episodes can intimidate so many people when it's a psychological thing where just like, do I really want to put in the time to do it? But I think it's worth the journey because just the depth of the story that you'll begin to see as we go on. And also, to your point about being into the canon, I think you're right in that it was the part of the big Shonen 3 of One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto. And One Piece is the kind of the last one standing in terms of continuations. Like, yeah, there's Boruto and there's the Bleach finale anime series, but One Piece is the one that's still really ongoing. I think the way I like to classify it is it's kind of like a sleeping giant in that it doesn't have a burning, fiery fan base that you would see at like a convention, but the people that are really into it are really into it. But it doesn't burn hot. Like it burns kind of at a cool pace. Like once you're into it, or you check out. But it doesn't feel like a franchise that people get really into and then move on to other things.
Yeah, and it really feels like, I mean, that's always kind of been like that when this was still relatively newer. A decade ago, there were the One Piece fans, the One Piece guys, and that was really the thing. But they kind of were on their own little corner. But it certainly feels like over the past decade, that the fervor for this series has really only grown, and the fans have only increased in number, and more people are talking about One Piece. So it feels like you're right that of all those big three, One Piece really won at the end of the day. If you really consider something winning, because it's still around, it's still very, very active, whereas the other series really kind of aren't.
Yeah, where I mean, currently One Piece Red, which is the latest kind of filler movie, has done ginormous box office revenue, and imagine when it comes out to the States, it'll do pretty well. Like, I remember, I think, One Piece Stampede and One Piece, yeah, at least Stampede, did around similar numbers to Dragon Ball movie when does it come out. So, yeah, it's really just kind of been it's been a remarkable how it's been able to continue and how Oda has still been able to chug along, going on 25 years or 20 years at this point.
All right, well then let's talk about my side of the wager here, Final Fantasy XIV. So, I mean, I've been a fan of these games for a bit. I was a little late to RPGs in general. Like Pokemon was my first real RPG, but I kind of revisited a lot of the Final Fantasy games over time, generally via emulation over the years. And back in the day, FF11 was one of those big games that people were playing. WoW quickly usurped it in the MMO space, but there were still a lot of people that were really into FF11 at the time. So, smash cut to a few years later, FF14 comes out, and it completely and totally bombs. I think I heard about it twice when it came out. The first time, I was just shocked that there was another MMO that came out, and secondly, that it bombed so hard they had to completely cancel it. And that's really my only experience with the game initially at that point. A few years later, I see that it's on Steam sale. No, I had no clue about 2.0, a Realm Reborn, or anything. But apparently it's good now. So I got FF14 in the Steam sale. I played it for a bit, but I didn't really want to pay for the subscription. So I kind of sat in my Steam library for several years until I met Basil, a good friend of ours. You know, one of the conchairs for the now defunct Hamacon, the, I guess, cat wrangler, you would say, of the Awesome Cast, the our podcast sister cast. Back when I was going to Hamacon and even Anime Week in Atlanta, I would see Basil would put on these panels about Final Fantasy XIV, this game that I thought was just a dead game. Like, why is he talking about this game that nobody plays? Okay, whatever. That's everyone has their specific games that they like. Everyone has their One Piece, so to speak. So whatever. I didn't really think much of it until a few years later, Basil we would talk more, and he would be like, "Yeah, you should get on 14. You should try it. It's kind of fun. You can hang out with us." And it just kind of sat there in the back of my mind as a thing I could do eventually. But right when Shadowbringers came out in 2019, I think I just had some free time, and I was like, you know what? I'll just buy a month. Why not? Let's play FF14 to see what it's like. And we dabbled a little bit about it, and then the pandemic happened. And I had sunk my teeth just enough in the game to start to really get into it because of everything with COVID. At that point, I just moved to Greensboro, so I had to give up my in-person Dungeons and Dragons game back in my old town. Since COVID had happened like 2 weeks after I moved to Greensboro, I didn't really have a whole lot of friends here, not a whole lot of established presence here, just some of the friends I knew from the podcast. So I kind of used FF14 as a social space, and it kind of replaced D&D for me in that aspect as well. Because you see, I've always really been enamored with the idea of like losing yourself in an MMO, in the sense that really get into it and get immersed in the game and like feel like you're playing a character. And the few times that I've tried to play like World of Warcraft and other games, I just never could get that point. It always felt like I was playing an artificial game. I never really connected with those games the way that I wanted to. And whether it was just because the way that 14 does world building, whether it's because it was just COVID and I was desperate for any sort of, interaction, what have you, I found that in Final Fantasy XIV, a way to suspend my disbelief and get fully immersed in this world and, find a little bit of obsession in that game. So, like everyone else that's been enjoying the game over the past few years, I kind of have pushed other people to play it as well. I've really enjoyed it. Like everyone else that won't shut up about Final Fantasy XIV, that repeats that meme that everybody knows about the critically acclaimed MMORPG with the free trial up to level 16 with no restrictions on playtime, including the award-winning expansion Heavensward. It just kind of, the push, the advertising just became part of the experience. And I know that a lot of people get annoyed by that. But for us, and for me in particular, I think it's just kind of an expression of how much we enjoy that game. More so than it is any sort of push to get people to play it. It just is part of the community, part of the experience. We all laugh at it and think it's funny. And I know some people get annoyed at it, and I'm sorry, genuinely sorry if, you roll your eyes when you hear those words. But it's just, again, it's part of the expression of love for this game. So my experience with FF14 is not as long as yours is One Piece. I feel like there's something that I have found, and a lot of our friends have found in this game, that really has inspired us to keep playing and push other people to experience. Because as much as MMOs are now kind of an outdated game type, as much as we already know about Blizzard and WoW and sort of how all that stuff has gone on, I really feel like there's something here in this universe, in this setting, that is kind of important to gaming and gaming canon. And I feel like more people should just experience that, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think probably the pandemic helped supercharge some things, but like you said, like finding that connection uh, amongst the world, and also it being a social outlet is a great is great for anything. I mean, when I hear from either you or from Austin, like, "Hey, Bill, you should check this show out," or I hear from Tori, like, "You should really read this book. I think you'd like it." You wanna be engaged with that because, well, my friends have good or interesting taste, and it'd be a fun discussion, and the back and forth is always cool, and so um, I want to give it a try.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, for me, I'm a bit of a weirdo in terms of my relationship with Final Fantasy, in that I didn't grow up with a PlayStation, so I didn't have Final Fantasy VII nostalgia, and I've never really gotten into the Final Fantasy games because either we didn't have the system that the franchise was on at the time, or I would have family members that were more possessive about their stuff, and so they were more hesitant to give me their RPGs and games like that. So I would be playing stuff on N64, like GoldenEye a lot, and stuff like Mario Kart or Super Mario 64.
Yeah.
Then, so time went on. Uh, a friend of mine, I think Ryan W, who's been on the podcast before, tried to get me into WoW because he used to be a WoW player, and I don't think it's totally his fault, but we went about it the wrong way, and that he just kind of pushed me to, like, let's just go do dungeons. And because I didn't understand the context of what was happening in the story, I was disconnected and didn't really care. So because of that, I checked out of WoW. Then when it came to 14, I had heard about it, like the meme, as Tobias has talked about, kept popping up. Like, it'd pop up in everywhere, from wrestling to general video game talk to just
Yeah.
a kind of a running joke on YouTube or Twitter. So I'd see it over and over and over again. And I think part of the reason why I was so shy about it was for two reasons. One, my not so great experience with WoW. And I'm like, well, this is another MMO. MMOs are probably all the same, right? And then two, just the meme, as Tobias probably talked about, kind of made me turn away because I was kind of getting a bit worn down by the overhype. Uh,
Yeah.
but uh, but thanks to this wager, I let the overhype defenses go down, and I decided to approach the game for what it is. And thanks to the free trial, I'm able to play the base game in Heavensward without really any sunken cost. The only other game that probably I've invested in sunken cost wise is probably Hearthstone, which is funny. I didn't get into the MMO, but I got into the card game that is Blizzard related. As Tobias said, we'll see if when I get past Heavensward if I want to continue. Yeah, I'm excited to get further into FF14, and this is my first real MMO experience. I kind of don't count WoW because all we were doing was dungeon stuff. And also, I am playing on the controller on the consoles because, one, I have limited space on my hard drive on my computer, and two, in my living quarters. And then I feel more comfortable using a controller than I do with mouse and keyboard.
And to be fair, like, I know that a lot of people, you see people play on mouse. Like, I use mouse and keyboard primarily, but it is entirely possible to do, like, up to the Unreal extreme stuff, like the real in-game content on controller. Some of the best players do play on controller, so it can take some getting used to, especially since you're trying to navigate this on-screen menu that seems like it's made for a mouse. But it is entirely possible to continue using that.
Hmm. That is my experience with 14 MMOs and Final Fantasy in general.
And it's funny you mentioned that about WoW because that was my experience as well. I started playing WoW right before Burning Crusade came out, which should give you an estimate of how old I really am. But like, I was right out of high school. A bunch of friends of mine at the little pizza place I was working at would just keep talking about WoW and how they had their level 50, druids, and they were doing this or that, and it kind of made me want to do that because I was getting into role playing games like D&D and whatnot, and the idea that you could just take that full experience of role playing a character, online in a video game, kind of blew me away. So I jumped on it, I started playing it, and sure, I got some of that immersion, but whenever you walk into a town, it's just constant people selling money, people challenging you to duels. I
Gold,
didn't
gold,
really
gold.
exactly like it took away the immersion for me, and all the people that wanted to just duel you outside the cities, and like the names. Everyone who plays these games has like a lot of people have really silly names that are just English words or a meme or whatever. But everything just sort of took me out of the experience in a way that I didn't really like. And this was about the time when people were talking about addictions, like WoW addictions, and that kind of like made me take a step back. Saying so many of my friends that were played this game constantly, it certainly put a bad taste in my mouth for MMOs as a whole. Which is why when I first started playing here, I'm sure Basil knows what I'm talking about, but I messaged him right when he started doing Carbuncle Chronicles and trying to get me to play. I was like, hey, I'm kind of new to this. I want to take things a little slow because I don't want to burn out. I don't want to rush into things because when I first started playing, some of my friends would sort of run me through dungeons, and I didn't like that. I had such a negative reaction to being run through. It was the first dungeon in WoW. I think you're also in like a pirate ship or something. I think it's
Hmm.
the first one on the Alliance side. I had a friend of mine run me through that, and it was just such a boring experience that I literally quit the game after that. And I really didn't want to do that with 14 because so many people had really enjoyed this game.
You probably also had the same experience of you're probably playing with one friend, but everyone else are either experienced veterans or people that have more experience with it, so they're just trying to go, 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 and farm experience and just get out of there.
Exactly.
Where,
Exactly.
to where you're just like, this is just a bunch of rooms to me. I don't understand the context of this dungeon, why it's important, what's at play in the story, and so because of that, why do I care?
Exactly. Exactly. So I bounced off WoW pretty hard, and even coming into 14, I've was telling everyone I want to sort of take it slow. Even as of now, playing for 2 years, I'm just now seeing the first credits for Stormblood. So I am approximately halfway through the entire series after playing off and on, mostly on, for 2 years. And that's not really indicative of most people's experiences. I just like taking my time in this game. I like taking it slow as a whole, which is unlike you because you're like halfway through 2.0 in what 2 weeks of playing.
Well, I mean, I get really focused when I'm into something, like whether that's One Piece or Detective Conan or JoJo or another game or a book. Like I get very singularly focused when I get into something. So that really so that's part of my nature, and everyone's different. And the other thing too is, like I've said off air, is I have a bit more free time than you do. So that extra free time really helps in getting me through the game faster. So if I had a much busier job and on top of school, then it'd probably be at a much normal normal person pace.
Right, a little bit slower, and that's absolutely fine. It gives me, I just need to catch up so I can make sure I'm reading One Piece approximately at the same time that you're finishing your quest
Well,
in
no,
14.
I don't want to burn you out, so you go at your own pace and when you can, because we, what neither of us want is for either of us to be start to turn sour and burned out towards our goal. So everyone goes at their own pace, and I think that's more than fine. So I'm saying this on the podcast, people. To tell Tobias, go at your own pace, enjoy the story, because everyone goes at different speeds. So we should do that too. And if I probably need to focus on other things too. There's a million movies I haven't watched. There's a bunch of books I need to read. So I need to probably take breaks as well. It's just right now this is the first real game that I've gotten really into in a little while, because I think the last game I was really into was Psychonauts 2. That's probably a year at this point.
Yeah.
So now that I have a game that I'm enjoying, I'm really into it, because before I got into 14, I was mostly just binging a movie, one or two movies a day.
Yeah, you're really into movies like wuxia films and noir
Yeah,
films for a bit, right?
yeah, I was doing a lot of wuxia, martial arts, noir, a lot of the old man genres of film. But now I've kind of taken a break from those, and I'm now focused on 14. And as you said, as we go on this journey, through the grand line, through this realm, uh, we'll be kind of doing kind of our thoughts of our progress, discussing our kind of introductions to characters, themes, to storylines, to just kind of our thoughts and maybe confusions about what's happening, why things are a certain way. And I think it'll be a fun experience, and I'm just excited to have a person to talk about One Piece besides my usual co-pilot. So to have someone go through the One Piece journey is really exciting for me, and I'm excited to have a video game that I'm enjoying playing again. So it's a win-win for everybody.
That's exactly it. I think there's certainly maybe an episode we can do later talking about the aspect of these like recommendations. Everyone talks about recommending stuff and adding it to their backlog and all that kind of thing. But I think there's something to look at when it comes to sitting down with somebody's recommendation and really giving it an actual honest attempt and really coming away with a lot of enjoyment, more enjoyment than you would have thought.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, so like you said, I think our podcast, we're primarily going to do regular check-ins. Like the next episode, we've got episode 1, which should coming out very shortly after this episode 0. We also do want to take time to just do an episode on specific themes or characters that they show up, like you said, rather than just go through, this is the last few quests, the last few chapters we read or played. Let's talk about this arc or this section or what we think about what this section is saying in the broader theme. Having read a little bit of One Piece already, I can certainly see there are themes building here, and I think there's a lot of those themes that we can see resonate in 14 as well. So that'll be kind of cool to see those two series side by side. And of course, as we would like to keep doing these mini-series episodes, we'll do them up into the end of Heaven's Word or Alabasta. But we would like to continue doing these. So if you are a fan of these, feel free to drop us a line. We've set up an email inbox for the show. That's a grand line reborn at gmail.com. By all means, send us an email with any comments, questions, criticisms. We would like to do mailbag episodes in the future. So if you have any specific questions about our experiences, or would like to talk about something in particular, feel free to drop us an email there. Again, a grand line reborn at gmail.com.
All one word.
And we would love to do those and interact more with a grander audience. Of course, a more regular way to interact with us would be both on the Third Impact Anime Discord that we will link here in the show notes, as well as our Twitter accounts. We are both pretty active on Twitter. So, Bill, what is your Twitter handle?
I am WB Foreman, Foreman, with 3 9s on Twitter. You can also find me in our Discord, where I'm usually the Mr. Newsman, posting all the latest news related to anime, manga, video games. So if you're wanting to stay more up to date, I think it's a race between me and Twitter of who can send people information faster. I don't know who's winning. I like to think I'm winning, but who knows?
And I'm also on Twitter at Reverend_Tobias. Well, Bill, I think that's it for episode 0. Any sort of closing thoughts about the start of our grand journey?
Let us set sail on the grand line, Tobias. Let us go into the realm. I am excited for this journey and excited to do this show with you.
As excited I am as well. Well, folks, until next time, till sea swallows all, set sail for One Piece.